As Politico just put it, quote, the Jeffrey Epstein news cycle is nonstop today. President Trump reacted to some of that news just a short time ago, saying he, quote, didn't know his Justice Department officials would be seeking a meeting with Epstein's convicted associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. The president adding, though, that he thinks it, quote, sounds appropriate. On the Hill, House Speaker Mike Johnson has decided to let lawmakers go home early. Staying could have meant a forced vote on those Epstein files. Earlier, a Republican-led effort to subpoena Maxwell actually passed in a House committee by voice vote. Kristen Holmes is at the White House. So Kristen, here, I just wonder if the White House made that request to the House Speaker to send everybody home so there wouldn't be any more votes?
Yeah, unclear if there was an actual request made, but one thing to keep in mind here is both the White House and really Speaker Johnson have said time and time again that the two of them are in lockstep. The idea that Speaker Johnson would make a decision like this without first running it by the White House seems suspect, particularly given the fact that I was even told as recently as today from a senior White House official that the White House is in constant contact with the Speaker and with GOP leaders on the Hill. Now, in terms of where President Trump is, what we heard today was any question that there was related to these Epstein files, related to the fact that his Department of Justice was going to be having a meeting or was requesting a meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. He wanted to change the subject as quickly as possible. And I'm told behind the scenes that's the same as well, that he doesn't want this story dominating. But one thing we've seen with this White House and this story in particular is that it has them really on the defense. They did have a moment of being on the offense, which is where Trump likes to be in terms of navigating a story. Last week, after that alleged letter was published by the Wall Street Journal and they filed the lawsuit against the Journal, they felt like there was a coalescing of MAGA forces behind President Trump. But even now, it seems to be weakening a little bit, given the fact that some of these lawmakers on Capitol Hill and some of his loudest allies, most supportive allies, are saying that there still needs to be more information released. Now, of course, this news that we have from Kara Scannell that Ghislaine Maxwell is going to oppose these transcripts from the grand jury testimony coming out actually might be more of a win for the White House, because one of the things that the White House has been worried about or trying to combat is the fact that they continue to be called out for their lack of transparency. At least in this case, they can say that this was something they asked for, even if Maxwell herself is the one opposing it.
So the president, he certainly shared some conspiracy theories about the Epstein files, but the bigger conspiracy he alleged today regards the 2016 election. And now we have a U.S. president accusing his predecessor, in this case Barack Obama, of treason. Explain to us how he is attempting to do that.
Yeah, this all relates back to information that his head of director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, put out on Friday, where essentially she says that this documentation shows that there was a conspiracy within the Obama administration to manufacture the notion that Russia tried to interfere with the 2016 election. And just to give you some background here, we had a number of our colleagues who covered that extensively, but also spoke to a number of lawmakers who had covered that extensively and have a deep knowledge of that. And there is no indication that this is, one, Obama committing treason, but two, that these allegations, there is an indication these allegations actually conflate what intelligence said at the time. But President Trump is really pushing this narrative now. In particular, when he was asked about Epstein, he started talking about how Obama had committed treason. There's going to be more of this. President Trump said so himself. He said that Gabbard has more documents to put out. So this is really just the beginning here as they try to look for avenues to stop talking about Epstein.
Sure, it's not the last time we hear about it. Kristen Holmes at the White House. Thanks so much, Brianna.
Let's talk about this now with CNN contributor Lulu Garcia-Navarro. She is a New York Times journalist and podcast host. Lulu, DOJ in talks to meet with Maxwell. You have the House Oversight Committee going to subpoena her after Congressman Tim Burchett forced a committee vote. How are you seeing these developments?
You only have to look on social media to see how the base of Donald Trump is seeing this. I mean, you had Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene scorning, dangling, I'm quoting here, bits of red meat at the base. Broadcaster Theo Vaughn has also said he's mad and called on Congress to do more. Lara Loomer dissed AG Pam Bondi, saying that the interview with Ghislaine Maxwell seems like a massive cope. And I'm quoting here again, why wasn't this quote unquote interview with Ghislaine Maxwell done on day one? So what you are hearing is that this isn't coming from the enemies, perceived enemies of Donald Trump, you know, the mainstream media, the Democrats. This is coming from the people that Donald Trump really cares about. And that's his base, right? Those are the people that he relies on to keep him in power. It's the barometer within which he measures his entire presidency. And so this is a real problem for him.
Do you think the president and the White House are misreading their base? I mean, they keep having to make these kind of concessions to the reality of what their base wants. And we'll be looking to see if that continues, if they have to do more. Do you think they actually can do anything to satisfy their base on this, considering how they've operated thus far?
Well, I mean, if you think about what's happened in Congress, this shows the really difficult position that the administration is in, because, you know, you had, you know, two lawmakers, one Democratic, one Republican, basically try to put this to a vote and call for all the documents to be released. And then what actually happened? You then had to see the Speaker of the House say, you know what, we're cutting our last work week short. We're going on our 5-week recess early because we don't want to have our lawmakers embarrassed and put on the record to be acting in perceived opposition to the administration. So this is going from online outrage to the halls of power inside the Congress. And so that becomes really more serious. And of course, Democrats are having a field day with this. They really are smelling blood in the water, and they're doing as much as they can to keep this controversy alive.
Lulu, how do you think, I mean, in lieu of what you just mentioned about Congress adjourning for recess early to avoid this vote on releasing Epstein info, how do you think Speaker Johnson is handling this issue?
I mean, at this point, duck and cover, right? He's basically saying we're closing up shop. He's putting a, you know, close sign on Congress, and he's sending all his lawmakers back to their districts. The problem is all those lawmakers back in their districts are going to be hearing from their constituents, because this is something that matters to the Republican base. I would argue it matters to many people because of the horrific crimes that Epstein was charged with, and also the fact that we know that the president of the United States was friends with Epstein for so long, and that there still is so much to be learned about this case. And so, you know, this is something that has captured the popular imagination. People feel like they have been hearing about this for so long, and they don't understand why this president, who campaigned on a promise of transparency, of opening up the books, of showing what was really happened behind the scenes, isn't doing what he promised.